Hey everyone, welcome to a very special edition of the Video Attic. So last time we talked about giallos. Specifically, we were talking about Sergio Martino and his films, and it was kind of meant to be a one-off, but we got to talking, Dylan and I, and we thought it might be kind of cool to maybe do another part and talk about one of my favorite giallo directors, and that is Dario Argento. And, as always, we got the wonderful Dillon Gonzalez with us. Hey.
Hey, Michael. Yes, I am excited to keep going down my journey of discovering giallo and learning about all the greats and all the fun things that people know about that I have not had the pleasure of checking out so far. And I thought, what better chance than to celebrate Dario Argento, because Arrow Video put out 3 of his most acclaimed works on 4K Ultra HD and really nice limited edition packaging last year. And I just wanted to quickly show off what films we're going to be talking about today. We are talking about Bird with the Crystal Plumage, The Cat o' Nine Tails, and Deep Red. So yeah, 3 of his most acclaimed works. And I have to show off these packages a little bit because they are pretty sweet. These are all the limited editions 4K titles. So as I said, here's the front. Nice sturdy box. I always keep my removable J cards that have all the information within the packaging. So we have that here. And with a ton of special features, there's audio commentaries, new featurettes. This particular package comes with a nice thick book here, full of nice essays where people like me can learn more about the giallo genre. It comes with a nice double-sided fold-out poster. One side is the cover art that you see on the front. And then some of the more original cover art. So this release is awesome. It's a 1-disc release. And it also comes with some lobby cards. So that's a pretty nice touch with the art on the backside. And as with most Arrow releases, it comes with reversible cover art. So that's on one side. Here's the other side. So I'm excited to talk about this one. I know this one is his debut directorial effort, and from what you remember, or I remember you telling me last time, you have quite an affinity for it. But before we get to that, I want to show off the rest of them. The follow-up, Cat o' Nine Tails. Here you go. Once again, nice thick packaging. Got the audio commentary, bunch of documentaries, English and Italian language track. Once again, a nice thick book. A fold-out poster. And reversible. Yes, and once again, we have this 4K disc, 1 disc. We got some lobby cards here. fan those out for you. And reversible cover art. There we go. And then another one of his most acclaimed Giallos, and one that I'm already written a review for on geekvibesnation.com. So if you want to have more in-depth thoughts from me, you can go look up that 4K review. That is Deep Red. And I love how these all look like lined up beside one another. It's just a thing of beauty. I love their packaging. And have their J card, like I said, more commentaries, documentaries, a great 4K transfer. Once again, sturdy booklet with essays. And once again, can't get enough posters. Got a fold out poster. Have the newer cover art and vintage cover art. And this one is actually a 2-disc release because it has the original version and the export version. So disc 1, disc 2, and once again, some lobby cards. And reversible cover art. So even different from the attached poster. So now that I'm done Vanna Whiting all this beautiful packaging, why don't we get to actually talking about the movies and what we thought about them?
Yeah. So I feel like we can just dive right in with Bird with Crystal Plumage, which, as you mentioned, is one of my favorites. I would even go as far as saying that it's definitely in my top Argento films, like full stop. I would only say that maybe Suspiria just slightly edges it out for me, like overall.
Yeah.
But yeah, so as you mentioned, it was his directorial debut, and wow, it is one of the most stunning feature film debuts. I don't want to say maybe ever, but definitely ranks up there as being so monumental, because in one movie you really get a flavor for like what his kind of take on Giallos is, which he's somebody that took up the mantle from Mario Bava, and kind of like took the building blocks of like something like Blood and Black Lace and Twitch of the Death Nerve, and really ran with it, and stuck to that formula, but also really made it his own as well. It's like there is some of the most intense moments that I will even say hasn't impacted me quite as much as like even like a Hitchcock film, in terms of like a white knuckle kind of like, holy crap. Like, yeah, it's oh God, I love it so much. I'm dying to hear what you think though, because I you have such great takes on things, so let me know what do you think of it?
Just to give some context to my history with Argento, or especially these three specific movies, I viewed them not in release order. I started with Deep Red, and then I went back to Bird with the Crystal Plumage, then Cat o' Nine Tails. And in the midst of all that, I also watched Suspiria, which is my favorite so far. I really enjoy Bird with the Crystal Plumage, and it's one that so far, like, I'm a few weeks away, like, from watching it, and I keep like thinking back to different aspects of it. And I guess between watching like Deep Red, which we'll get to in a little bit, and now this, it appears that Argento really has like kind of like an obsession with perception and like how people take in information and their brain processes it, because that is a big part of like Bird with the Crystal Plumage, where all three of these films are just people basically witnessing crimes or being around crimes and then them trying to find the killer. It's not very deep most of the time, but it's like how we get to the killer that matters. Really, it's the journey. But especially like what, and I don't want to like jumble the characters' professions, because I know in Deep Red he is a musician, and Cat o' Nine Tails he's a reporter, and then the Bird with the Crystal Plumage, a photographer. Am I right? Or
Yes.
Yes. Okay. Oh no, he's a writer. Sorry.
Oh, right.
I wrote
Right.
He
He writes on Rare Birds.
Yeah. So these films I kind of like mix and mesh in my brain, but I like that he sees this crime happen at the beginning, but Argento usually seems to give you the tools throughout to like unlock the movie. It's just whether or not you're going to piece it all together, which I really like. And I'll get to that more in Deep Red. But I like how Bird with the Crystal Plumage really plays out, and especially how it leads up to the end. And like, it's all very satisfying. It's like all the pieces pretty much connect, but it's just getting there that's a lot of fun, especially like how it connects with the title. I found really satisfying.
Yeah. There are definitely some cheats that he does, I think, particularly with Deep Red, where the solution to it is something that you really, I don't know if you really are intended to actually like see until it's sort of revealed to you. But I think, with Bird, I don't think he uses a lot of these sort of cheats. There are a lot of misdirection. There's definitely a lot of great twists and turns. I mean, there's so many different, like, it's like your head is spinning sometimes of like where it takes you.
Yeah.
And it always keeps it really engaging. It always keeps it like very fresh. Again, in one movie, we establish a lot of themes that Argento will do like throughout his career. And I feel like he's even kind of remade this film a little bit in his career. Like Four Flies on Gray Velvet is one that I feel like is pretty much a sort of soft remake of Birth of Crystal Plumage. Yeah, like at a certain point, he seems like he sort of like remade his first film a few times, and then it really shifts whenever he starts doing like stuff like Suspiria and Phenomena and stuff like that. But yeah, it really definitely ushered in a really amazing talent. Have you, I don't recall if I asked you this on the last one, but have you seen Four Flies on Gray Velvet?
No, that's the one of the three in the animal trilogy that I haven't seen.
Okay. Yeah, it's a little harder to find. I know they did. I made sure to grab the DVD release a while back because before that, it had like a German release and that was it. And I think like the US DVD release might be out of print now, but I'm hoping somebody puts it out. Like I'm putting it out there in the universe. Somebody, maybe Arrow, you know, who else would probably
It would
do that?
surprise me if Arrow didn't release it.
I mean, I'm sure they want to. I mean,
Yeah.
it's for some reason it's a movie that it seems to be hard to get the rights to, maybe.
Hmm.
Because again, the DVD release was super limited, and you know, not that's unfortunately not one that's super well known. I don't think it's like a masterpiece, but it is definitely worth checking out. But
Mhm.
um, yeah. So back to Bird though. Like, so we're gonna get into some spoilers here.
Oh,
So
are we?
yeah, because I feel like it's
Yeah.
hard to really like. I really want to get into what you think of the reveal.
Yeah.
So, you know, I certainly encourage you to like skip ahead if you do indeed want to see this, and I highly recommend you watch the movie, but you know, maybe jump ahead like 5 minutes. I'll try to
Yeah.
maybe put a timestamp in there
Yeah.
to jump ahead. But so yeah, spoiler alert though. What did you think of the final reveal? It's kind of like a reveal on a reveal.
Hmm. Yeah. I I appreciate it because this will get into what like a theme that I kind of sense with him, where there's usually a like subverting expectations of it being like a male killer, and then it's eventually like you're like, oh, what you saw like wasn't like you didn't see what you think you saw. So she was not being attacked at the beginning; she was attacking.
He was,
So
yeah.
yeah, and just like even whenever her husband does die, like you can just feel it in the movie. You're like, this isn't over. There's something left. This kind of tied up too neatly almost. So whenever he does, like his girlfriend gets led away and she gets put in danger, um, like you do become invested in his girlfriend and you don't want her to die. So it's like your pulse gets racing, and then they had that showdown with the sculpture and everything, and he's like trapped in it. It's very tense. Like I think it worked out well, and that's the that is the movie where she was. The explanation was she was triggered by that painting that like caused her to like snap basically, and that's why she started killing people because of her
Yeah.
trauma from the past.
Um, yeah, and I mean it's so interesting because you had to put it into perspective of like when this was made. So this was 1970, and I'm trying to really think if, you know, we've had other like female killers like
Yeah.
10 years. This was 10 years before Pamela Voorhees. Um, I would not be surprised if there was some kind of inspiration, even on a subconscious level, of like that being an inspiration for Friday the 13th, the original. Which isn't that far-fetched because if we're going to talk about like Giallo's inspiring slashers, or Giallo's being sort of the root of slashers, Bay of Blood, which is also Twitch of the Death Nerve, which was Mario Bava, which a lot of people consider one of the seminal sort of proto slashers. Like there's some kills in that are directly lifted and used in Friday the 13th Part 2. See, folks, I don't remember important stuff, but I do remember stuff like this.
Yeah.
So stay in school, or don't. Who cares? Um, but yeah, so I think that like I'm really trying to think back of like prior to this, if we've ever had like a woman serial killer in a horror film. I mean, probably, and I'm just blanking on it. Like I can't imagine this is the first, but it's definitely um like a notable exception anyways.
Yeah.
I never like to say it's the very first because then I'm going to get a slew of like well actuallys, but
Yeah.
it's definitely way ahead of its time. Like, oh gosh, and that reveal is so good because as I said, it's not, you feel like, okay, you kind of have it figured out. You probably know the moment that I'm talking about, and then it's just like another reveal. And I mean, I like that the red herrings actually, I mean, like some red herrings are pretty obvious. I mean, especially if you are well versed with the genre, like the really creepy assassin guy is definitely like a red herring, or like the pimp who, is a great character, but I guess he wasn't a red herring because he was behind bars. But I mean, it's like that kind of character that you kind of like know isn't is too obvious maybe. But yeah, I love that like they build it up to be the husband, and then he like takes a leap out of the window. Oh, and also that amazing like POV shot. They actually broke a camera. Like they just like for real, they
Yeah.
hoisted it over, and I guess they had it on a bungee cord,
Yeah.
and like the cord snapped,
Oh
and
man.
they were luckily able to get the footage. But I mean, that is almost like, I mean, you almost can feel that impact because you're in that POV of his like
Yeah.
dive
It's
down.
worth it. It's worth it.
Oh yeah, I mean, I love like that's the kind of like guerrilla filmmaking that I don't feel like we don't really see anymore. At least definitely not on like a big budget. Although this was I think a pretty modest budget, but I mean, again, it's like it, it's so like tense in how he stages scenes, how he like sets up direction and misdirection. Again, he doesn't really cheat the audience. There are a few little cheats here and there, but I think that you just kind of go with it because it's that sort of like you always kind of have this weird logic in these Argento movies, in a lot of like these Italian genre films. Like there's a moment that always makes me laugh when he's our main hero nearly gets decapitated, and he goes back to his flat with his girlfriend, and he's like, I just got killed, and then they like proceed to make out and have sex,
Yeah.
as you do when you are nearly decapitated.
Of course.
And yeah, so you always kind of need some like weird sort of like non sequiturs like that, but it's very focused though. This is, I think, one of his more focused, character driven. Like again, it's stylish, but he's not quite at his height when it comes to style.
Mhm.
Like I mean, Deep Red is definitely where you can see he's playing more with visual colors, like visual like keys, like composition, color, stuff like that. um and again, you have a lot of flair here, but it's not like quite where he's at yet. But again, it's like it's still staggering for a first feature film, like somebody just right out of the gate and knows exactly where he wants to be and where he wants to go. I mean, again, I feel like it's no coincidence that he kind of soft remade this film a few times early in his career.
Yeah. One thing that you made me think of whenever you're talking about how focused it is, I do really like, especially to Deep Red, which kind of tend to favor, but what I like more about Bird is that it's just a very concise 96 minutes compared to the over 2 hours for Deep Red. So it just feels like there's less padding overall. Even with, we didn't even mention one of my favorite, just, it's important to the plot, but just weird scenes of like the crazy artist who lives in the attic who doesn't have a proper door and everything. It's just a weird, he eats like animals and stuff,
like cat,
like kittens, right?
Yeah.
He eats kittens, right?
Yeah. Again, it's interesting because, cats is another thing that is a motif in Argento films. Like he, see, I'm trying to think if he did the black cat in the George Romero Argento thing, if that was his segment, and now I'm blanking on it. But I know that cats.
I think he did, yeah.
Okay, because I know that listen, I'm not an Argento scholar. I just have seen a lot of his films, and like all this useless crap stays in my brain. But I will, like, something I did note is like specifically like black cats is something that he uses a lot, which has a lot of like symbolism and like it's very totemistic. And I think that that's something that he likes to sort of interject in his other works. So again, it's like this is such a Rosetta Stone for like the blueprint. Oh my gosh, I cannot talk. Blueprint for just like the rest of his filmography. And it's again, it's so mind-boggling how somebody right out of the gate is so self-assured of like what he wants to do and what themes drive him. And like, I know you see this a lot too with new filmmakers, where it takes them a while to really develop their themes and their voice, or like things that they like to use. And some filmmakers take a little longer than others to maybe mature to like where they're really at their like zenith. But I think like right out of the gate, like he knows exactly his speed. Like, I mean, he would definitely do a big departure with Suspiria and his more supernatural films. But again, even like something like Suspiria has sort of like a Giallo flavor to it. Like, yeah, so I love it. I will say something super controversial, and I know people love Deep Red, and I do appreciate it, but I like Birth of Crystal Plumage more. Like maybe even a lot more.
Gonna get people tuning out, Michael. Tune it out.
I mean, listen, I respect people that love Deep Red. It is a great movie. I mean, God, that Goblin score is everything. It's just, again, it's like you pointed out, I like Deep Red, but like there is a lot of like what I feel like is filler. And I mean, I will say that like there's some really interesting like characters. Particularly there's some like queer coded characters going on in Deep Red that I find fascinating. But yeah, it's just like, get to the point. Bird is so again focused. I keep coming back to that word, but I can't think of a better way to describe just how like efficient it is in its storytelling.
Absolutely. And so I guess that kind of leads us on to like Cat o' Nine Tails. How do you feel with the success of Bird? How do you think his follow-up did? Because I know I've read that he considers it one of his lesser movies.
Yeah, I would agree. No, listen, like there's aspects that I really like. I like Carl Malden in an Argento film. Like, his character is pretty interesting. I just think that again, it just feels a little like a soft remake of Birth of Crystal Plumage, but not as good and not as like innovative. I mean, it's beautifully shot. Like the score is also really great. There's a lot of like all the elements are there. It's just it never quite comes together in what I feel like is a very satisfying kind of film. Like I've seen it a few times, but honestly, it doesn't really stick with me that much. Like even though I don't think that Deep Red is as good as Birth of Crystal Plumage, it does have moments that like stays with me. Cat o' Nine Tails, you know, doesn't really. What do you think?
Yeah, I like it, but it is the least of the three, especially because I by the time we get to the reveal, like it kind of seemed anticlimactic. I'm like, okay, this is the person, and I was like, okay, like I didn't really care about like why the person was doing what they were and like who it was. It just didn't seem that satisfying. I was like, the process leading up to it was more interesting. Like whenever there was like the potential of someone being poisoned, like that scene with the milk, that kept me on edge because I was like, is this person about to drink poison? Are they about to die? But like there are individual scenes leading up to it, including like the push in front of the train, like earlier on. Like I like how they like people find out like, oh, this also drives me crazy. Like this happens a lot in these types of movies, but just like people calling the reporter up being like, I know who the killer is. And they're like, but I want to tell you in person. I'm not going to tell you on the phone. And I'm like, why would you do that? Just tell them. That's later, but just tell them.
Yeah, and again, it does feel like a little bit of a sort of I don't know. It's kind of a shortcut to like building tension, which again, I know Argento it can do a really excellent job at building tension and, you know, a really good setup and payoffs. But yeah, again, it's just it it just doesn't it's nothing that really like stays with me like the other films. And you know, it's a shame because again, I feel like like the ingredients are there. It's just, you know, it's just doesn't quite come out as efficiently as the other films.
Yeah.
Again, like even though I think Deep Red is a little bit overblown at times, I still feel like it's memorable. Like there are definitely scenes that kind of like stay with me. So, you know, it's fine. I definitely am glad that I have it like as a completist, like an Argento completist. I definitely like want it in my collection. It's definitely nice to kind of like so it's really interesting because you know we're getting a lot of Argento in like 4K and like I came to a lot of these movies through like Anchor Bay and just whatever like I could get a hold of. So it's kind of like I'm jealous of people that are just starting out watching Argento, being able to see them in this like these beautiful like I think I saw Cat o' Nine Tails in a really bad like very bad quality, very poorly dubbed. It wasn't a bootleg, but it was like it might as well have been. It was like one of those like cheapo like I forget like it was like I'm trying to think of what the distributor was, but yeah, it was like nowhere near as gorgeous looking as the Arrow version is. But
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I mean it's really interesting to kind of like chart his growth. And it's so weird though because again I feel like for a little while there, he was just remaking Birth of Crystal Plumage. again, like Cat o' Nine Tails kind of feels like a pseudo remake. Four Flies kind of does. At least there's pieces of Bird of the Crystal Plumage is sort of cribs. Although I would say it's maybe not as derivative. But you know, yeah. So I mean, it's just I think with Deep Red, at least it's sort of like he's trying to like he's still taking themes of perception and blink or you miss it, kind of thing of like it's almost like that fragmented memory that haunts you that you've seen something, but it's so like just in the back of your mind kind of thing. And that's something that you can see, you can like that's something that I think is in almost every Argento film to a certain extent. Is that sort of like perception and memory and like, you kind of know the secret to it is buried in your mind and then it just unlocks. That's something that he really likes to play with time and time again. But again, it all starts back with what he set up in Birth of Crystal Plumage. Like it all comes back to that. I mean, even like Suspiria with, Susie, like actually seeing, like hearing or like, having, she sort of knows the reveal with the flower to get into the room.
Yeah.
Because she like just overhears it, but she can't quite make out what they were saying. And then, again, it's this, I don't know, I'm rambling, but you know what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
So, do you want to pivot over to Deep Red now?
Yeah, because what you were saying about like him remaking Bird with the Crystal Plumage over and over, that's kind of why like there are parts of Deep Red that I appreciate more because it's kind of like a little bit more supernaturally tinged. And I know I alluded to this earlier and you think it's kind of a cheat or whatever, but I appreciate the fact that if you know where to look, you can see the killer very early on, but it's just kind of like, it's a treat for like rewatches basically, but it's just like, you're like, oh, it was there. You just weren't like, you had to like look at that specific spot on the screen at that exact moment in motion. And you could have like seen this, something was off. So I appreciated that fact. And so like the supernatural, like kind of psychic elements and everything, that's what kind of made the story a little bit more interesting for me. In addition to like, just as like jumping in quality of like aesthetics, like, cause just like the colors in that, like all the reds and everything, like the motif of red just throughout the movie, I really appreciate it.
Yeah, and that's such a great point because I will say that, in rewatching these and, taking notes, I will say that, as I said earlier, Birth of the Crystal Plumage is very stylish, but I feel like he doesn't really reach that zenith until like Deep Red, where, he's known for his over the top and stylish kills. And, Deep Red, I think, is really where he hammers at home, like in the way we kind of know it. Like, another great example is Tenebrae that I know is getting a 4K release, and I'm so excited. Like, this has been the last couple of years have been amazing for Argento fans, especially with getting all these movies in 4K and yeah, gosh, we are living in a really great time as far as movies go. But yeah, it is definitely stylish. I do love, as you say, that like the use of red. I think that the death of the psychic that kind of kicks off this like mystery thriller is excellent. It's that wonderful combination of like gory and grotesque, but beautiful. Like that's something that he's always kind of been fascinated with and has played with a lot.
Mhm. Absolutely. Yeah. That, like I said, that initial kill, well, it opens up with like the flashback, but that initial kill with the psychic, I like how that's set up with her just like at the piano and like hearing something. It's kind of like a common thing of just the killer breaking in. Like there's dual things. There's the killer that is already inside your house, or the killer is like banging on the door trying to get through, and then like he's scared away by something, or he like almost gets you. That kind of like seemingly recurs throughout all these Giallo movies I've been watching. But one special effect that, or kill, I guess, death, that I appreciated was like the decapitation. I won't really underline it more than that, but it was a lot of fun.
Yeah, the kills are definitely really creative in this. And again, there is a lot, especially a lot more than Cat o' Nine Tails is really this. I mean, I feel like the world building's a lot better, and I mean, I will say that even though I think it's a little long, I do appreciate that there's some interesting characters. Like one of the characters that I think is kind of fascinating is Carlo, who I guess maybe it's a little bit more in the extended version of it, but I guess he's like supposed to be like identify as queer in the movie. Like I know he has like a roommate that is certainly at least coded a little more queer. So I find that fascinating, although they sort of like don't portray him as the most stable person, which is unfortunately kind of a sort of a stereotype of people in you know that community, like in that community, which is unfortunate. But again, just I never perceived it. I mean, especially as somebody that also identifies as queer, I never thought that Argento's stuff was overtly homophobic, even though it can, some of it is a little cringy.
Yeah.
Like, with Bert, like it's a scene that like makes me chuckle, even though I think that it's definitely problematic, which is like they're rounding up the like the usual suspects, and I guess like the one character is like the transvestite, and he's supposed to be with as he the movie's words, not mine, to be with the perverts. And yeah. But he quips like, well, the trans person's like quips, well, well, I should say so, like, like kind of as like a reclaim of, I don't know, that pejorative. But yeah, I don't know. Like, I mean, I don't want to get too sidetracked because I mean, like, that's a whole other topic that you could talk about, which is how, Argento uses queer or queer coded characters, and how that representation's a little dicey at best. But again, I think it's interesting. I like, as far as representation goes, within the thriller and horror genre, sometimes you have to unfortunately take what you can get. So, having a character like Carlos is at least really fascinating, if not at times could be cringy to some people. But
yeah,
yeah, like what did what did you think of like how Argento sort of uses sort of like queer coded or queer characters? Like, What's your take on that?
I'm not sure if I have a take on that. I wasn't really forefront of my mind. I was mostly trying to solve the puzzle and like focusing like on like the hidden messages and like this shower like hidden in steam and everything. So I didn't really put it forefront of my mind of how he was portraying those characters, honestly.
Yeah, I was just curious. Like, I know that it's, it's again, I'll move on. I won't belabor it because again, that could be like a whole other, thing, show or whatever topic. But yeah, again, I think it's fascinating. I think that Deep Red, even though it sounds like I don't like it, I really do like it. I just don't think that it's my favorite. Or so it's kind of interesting because with Argento fans, it's usually the three that people love the most are like Deep Red, Suspiria, and Birth of Crystal Plumage. Probably the more of like the former two. It's funny because I'm just now starting to see a lot more love for Birth of Crystal Plumage. Like I just think it's a stunning film. Like I don't know. You can't tell that I love it, right?
Nope. Yeah, I cannot tell that your allegiances are firmly planted in that camp.
Like it's so funny because like I watched it not that long ago, but now I'm so excited talking about it again that like I want to just go back and rewatch it like for the 100th time.
Yeah.
Okay, so out of all three, what would you say was your favorite?
I guess as a whole, I would say Bird with the Crystal Plumage just because it's not as bloated as Deep Red, but I think there are elements of Deep Red that I like more. But as a whole film, I would think probably Bird with Crystal Plumage.
Yeah. That's really interesting. So, I mean, you can definitely chart the sort of maturity though, that even as great as Bird was, like I certainly can see like from 1970 to 1975, which was when Deep Red was released, like how much he grew as a filmmaker, even though I think that Birth of Crystal Plumage is something that feels like a fully formed, mature auteur. So I mean, again, that's kind of why I like a lot of these older films are being released, and then you can kind of like track his like progression as a filmmaker, which is always really fun. That's kind of why I love, these labels that are putting out like these sometimes really obscure films because, it might not mean something to everybody, but if you're like a completist of that filmmaker, it's great to fill in those gaps and like see how they grew as, artists.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, I would definitely, I mean, it's not hard to tell what my order would be. Obviously, it would be like Birth of Crystal Plumage, then Deep Red, then Cat o' Nine Tails. Like if I was talking like overall Argento, I would probably say Suspiria would be like my absolute favorite, followed by Birth of Crystal Plumage, probably then followed by Phenomena, and then Deep Red.
Yeah, I have not seen Phenomena yet. I'm really interested in that one though. I love Jennifer Connelly.
Yeah, Synapse just did a incredible like 4K beautiful release that I like wanted it so badly. I just bought it out of my own money because I had the beautiful steelbook that they put out with which is awesome because it includes a soundtrack, which is like that's still why that release is like the best. But to have like both versions of the film in 4K. Actually, I think maybe all three cuts are in 4K.
Oh, good. No, it's disappearing.
Ooh, that's weird looking.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, so it's a little hard to see because of my background. I'll do my best to show it off here. Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah, just keep it in front of you so we can see it.
Yeah. Uh, this is a must see. Yeah, there we go. So yeah, that is the back. Again, I know we're not talking about this title, but you know, I got to give this some love because this is how you package and put out a movie. Oh, that's terrible. There we go. Yeah, Phenomenal is great. If you want to see Donald Pleasance with a razor wielding monkey
Mm-hmm. I
with
do.
Jennifer Connelly and psychic insects,
Mm-hmm.
it's like easily in the top 5 of those movies.
Okay, you're speaking my language. I got it. I got it now.
No, it's great. It's oh my gosh, it has one of those amazing moments that like I've seen it like 30 times, but it still makes me jump out of my seat.
Oh, nice.
So yeah, you know, um, maybe if y'all like these videos, we can do like a maybe like a video on like phenomena or like maybe another Giallo director. We don't have any plans to, but if y'all want it, I'm sure we can kind of make some time. So what are like some final thoughts just on like all 3 of these films?
I would say I enjoy them all. They're after watching like some like kind of lesser giallos from other directors, it makes me appreciate exactly why Argento is so acclaimed. And you have to give it up to him just for popularizing the genre. So, I mean, just that these movies, they are well known for a reason. They're lifted up for a reason. They're very good. They're very entertaining. They're kind of like a really good like mainstream entry point into this genre. So if you're like wanting to take baby steps, like look at the most popular, and then like up your weirdness and up your like brutality, and like just you can level up as you like graduate from the mainstream.
Or like just up yours, like
Yeah.
no, you make an excellent point. That's so great because I think that you're spot on when like Argento is, I think, a really good entry point. And that's why I thought this would be kind of cool to like do a part 2 because if if some of you are kind of new to giallos, and again, it's a genre that is so vast that it's kind of daunting and maybe a little bit overwhelming. So I would actually say, and then let me know what you think of this. I think that specifically Birth of Crystal Plumage, I think makes a nice starter giallo.
Absolutely. I mean, it's the one that kind of kicked off the craze. So you might as well live like the audiences back then and just start it off with that and just keep on going.
Yeah, and I would even say that I think like I would echo that for sure. And I would also say I would make it a double feature with Mario Bava's Blood and Black Lace because as much as I love Argento, I got to give it up to Bava, who a lot of scholars kind of consider him like the OG Giallo director. But yeah, you're exactly right. Like Birth of Crystal Plumage like made it explode. It really like I don't think, I mean, it's probably safe to say that it wouldn't be so popular without that film and without Argento. Like taking those building blocks from Bava and really running with it. And again, as much as like like I'm a really big Bava fan, but I'm definitely not like a scholar. But I will say that like he's somebody that I always thought brought a lot of like style to his films. Have you seen a lot of? Are you a big Bava fan?
I have not seen a lot of Baba. No,
Um,
I'm unsure if I've seen any, honestly.
oh wow. Okay. So yeah. Like Black Sunday and Black Sabbath are like the two like that you like if you're gonna like only see a couple, I would say okay, so here's like the three that I would say for sure.
Okay.
Black Sunday, Black Sabbath, and Kill Baby Kill. Those are like
Okay.
the must see. And then if you have like time, Bay of Blood, because that's again kind of the Rosetta Stone of slashers, I think, or like proto slashers.
Have was he the director who did Shock that you covered a couple months ago?
Yes.
Okay, that's the only movie I've seen from him.
Oh, that's unfortunate.
Yeah.
No, listen, people like Shock, and like
Yeah.
I'm glad. I'm not a hater. I love when people love things.
Mm.
There's just things that don't necessarily connect with me, and that's fine. Shock was, I feel like, unfortunate as his sort of swan song, but yeah, gosh, there's so many really good ones. To give Kino Studio Classics a shout out, they have, I think, a lot of Baba on Blu-ray. There's some stuff on I can link in the description, but I think that there's some stuff that's on sale right now in their March sale.
March in the spring.
March in
March in
yeah.
April.
They're marching somewhere. I know that.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I guess like final thoughts. I really like Argento. I mean, love Argento. You know, even though I feel like his later stuff's a little hit or miss,
Mm-hmm.
I always try to remember like when he was amazing and made like almost like hit after hit. You know, I mean, again, even some of his later stuff I think is at least interesting, where I think that you know, I will give people credit where you know, even if it doesn't necessarily like work, it's not boring and it doesn't feel like phoned in. And I think, you know, no matter what, I think of even like the most I'm trying to think of a nice way to put this. Like, you know, even at like his worst, I think Argento is still really interesting and like goes places where you might not really expect. So yeah, I really love these are three excellent movies. If you're kind of new to Argento, I think that you know, Deep Red is great, but I think just if you're looking for, if you're not as somebody that is willing to sort of go with a slower burn, you know, I would say again, you know, Birth of Crystal Plumage is a good one to start with, like an excellent one. And, you know, that I think will temper your expectations for whether or not you think you're going to enjoy these. But yeah, so with that, I think we'll wrap up this video. But you know, again, if you want to hear us talk about some more of these, maybe some more obscure stuff, I know there's definitely some really cool titles that are maybe not as well highlighted, but I think are still really worth exploring. So, you know, if you want that kind of stuff, like, you know, chime in and let us know.
Yep.
And, you know, as always, give us a like and subscribe if you enjoy this content. And yeah, thanks for hanging out with us.
Mm-hmm.